Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Ciara from Ciara T Designs, and welcome to day 13 of my January celebration. So let's jump right into these cards. So I have a duo of cards to share here with you with an interesting color combo. I think I saw this color combo in one of Christina Warner's blends, I believe. I don't know. I write down color combos that I see sometimes because I think they're really neat and I've never tried them. And I believe that's where I saw it. It might not have been though, to be honest with you. I see a lot of cool blending techniques, or blending palettes. But to start, I am going to cut down my cardstock. So I have my 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch base when scored. And then I've cut down my card panel to be about 1/4 of an inch smaller than my base. And my black mat will be about 1/8 of an inch smaller than the base, just giving me this really cool layered look when I go to adhere everything together. And then I'm going to white heat emboss my image onto my panels. You could also clear heat emboss because the paper is white. I have more white embossing powder than I do clear, so that's kind of why I went that direction. And I have the Tim Holtz Floristry stamp here. That is what I'm going to use for the background of this card, and it's kind of the focal really too. And I also have a Waffle Flower Mat in my Misti. That's what holds my cardstock. That's how I cannot use the magnet to hold down my paper when I'm doing like large stamping areas like this. It's just way easier, I find, but you do have to be careful because technically you should remove it when using red rubber stamps because it kind of acts like the foam insert. And as you can see, I didn't remove it, I left it in. So then you just have to be aware of your red rubber stamp and where you're stamping because you might miss areas just because it is kind of raising it up a little bit. I haven't had any issues, and this also made it so that I knew where to stick my image as well. And I just kind of blocked mist from stepping on any of my stickiness here because, of course, the stamp has sticky, the mat has sticky. So I was just trying to avoid having her step on anything kind of weird here. So she left. She went and slept on my other desk because I wouldn't let her stand on top of my project, but that's okay. She's forgiven me, so it's okay. But here you can just see that I'm double checking the centers of the flowers to make sure that I did actually get a good impression on them before I add my white embossing powder. And as I said, you could use clear here as well because it is white paper. It would just lock in the design. I don't know, I grabbed my white because it was easier to grab and I have extra jars of it. As you can see, I'm kind of running out of this jar though, so I will be switching over pretty soon. And I just thought that would be a really fun image for the background. So now I'm going to heat set it with my heat tool. It is a little bit hard to see. The only way I really know that it has kind of heat set is that I'll tip it in the light, and if anything still looks a bit grainy, I know that it hasn't melted, and if it looks a little bit glossy, then it has melted and it's in the background. But white on white, it's really hard to tell what kind of happened there. So that is one thing. You know, you'd have the same thing with clear though, so unless you were using a colored version of the embossing powder or stamping it in black, it's really hard to see it here, but it does work really well to just tip it in the light and make sure that everything has set and is looking, really smooth and a little bit glossy. So that is kind of what I aim for when I do these full backgrounds, but it is really hard to see as the embossing powder melts. And then we're going to jump into the ink blending. So here's the blend of colors. We have Antique Linen, Evergreen Bough, and Black Soot. And I'm so sorry, I'm going to adjust the camera here in 1 second. I realized that it was quite on an angle here in like 2 seconds. Here I'm going to kind of fix it and stop it from wiggling around quite as much as it was. It does wiggle a little bit, especially since this clip is sped up. I am working on that. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm trying to get a setup that doesn't move when I blend, but the desk moves when I blend, so it's hard to stop the camera from moving. I am looking at a setup that has the camera embedded in the wall so that doesn't happen, but for right now, my camera does sit on my desk. So because of that, or it's attached to the desk. So because the desk moves, the camera moves when I blend. So I apologize. I hope it's not terribly irritating. I am working on improving that. If you have any suggestions on how to improve that, let me know because I'd love to hear. But for now, we just kind of have to deal with what it is as I kind of work on fixing up my setup. I've gotten to the point where I have to upgrade my setup, but everybody's setup that I see, they have like really nice DSLR cameras and like multiple of them. And I'm not quite there yet. So I'm trying to find a good in-between fix that's not terribly expensive. So I'm working on that. But for now, I apologize as the camera moves around. So but yeah, so I went in with my 3 colors. You see that I have dome foams. Those are my preference for ink blending. I find that they lay the ink down way better than the flat foams do, at least in my personal opinion. And I'm going to go in with the last color here. And I did do both panels at the same time, just because I do find that the easiest way to do this. I kind of go back and forth on the colors. And then once I kind of bring black soot to the Evergreen Bough, I will bring Evergreen Bough's blending tool back in to kind of blend them together and give it a better look. And then I will also bring in a piece of clean white paper towel. It's not wet, it's dry, but this just helps me buff any ink off of the embossing powder, letting that white shine through a bit more. So there's kind of the comparison there with one I haven't buffed the ink off of yet and then one that has. You can just see that the white is a bit more bright in this, and that's kind of what I was going for. So that's the background that we've completely created. Then I brought in this, I would say it's a champagne color maybe, of kind of a pearly cardstock. I found it at Michael's when they had their cardstock on like 2 for 1. I needed a second one, and I found this, and it was like champagne and silver, I think. And these dies are from the Tim Holtz Vault Wildflowers. I picked out 3 of the Wildflowers. Honestly, I shouldn't really be using the sidekick for this, at least not with these shorter plates. They kind of need the longer plates to pull these off, but I don't have the longer plates, so I'm using what I have. I should have just put them in my switch, but it seemed so silly to put them through the switch for such a small die, you know. But yeah, this long skinny guy, he doesn't want to go in there at all because he's too close to the front of the plate. He does not want to go through the sidekick. So don't struggle like me. Just use your regular die cutting machine and cut that out. See, because here you can see the end didn't even cut because he had to be on so much of an angle that he didn't want to cut it all. But I made it work. It's just one of those things where it was just kind of lazy because the sidekick was just sitting on my desk. So because of that, I like fought with it a bunch instead of just putting them through my switch and calling it a day. I don't know why I did that, but it's one of those things. I just wanted to use it because they're so thin, right? These little dies, like they're not very large. So I kind of thought that, you know, I was just saving some time by using my little die cutting machine when really I probably took just as long trying to get them through there. So either way, use whatever die cutting machine tickles your pickle. I just I ran them through my sidekick and kind of regretted it after I'd halfway through, but then I was committed, so I just kept going. But I'm going to cut 3 of the sprigs for each card front. They get the same 3. I'm only going to show you it here, and then I stopped because I thought this was probably getting frustrating to watch as you're seeing me fight with my little sidekick. It's kind of funny, really. But I do love, and I ripped one of them here. You can see I ripped that one off completely. Doesn't matter. I just glue it back together as I go to actually build the card. But I did struggle a little bit here just to get them to kind of cut nicely. I honestly think it's just me though. So I did get them all together here in a minute, and it was really kind of funny. But yeah, so I got 3 of these sprigs for each card design, and then I laid them out how I wanted them to. I kind of have the thinnest sprig in the back, and then I kind of just layer up from there, making sure that they stay within the card panel. I didn't want to trim them off. They're so delicate and beautiful that I really didn't want to have to trim pieces off of them. So because of that, I am making sure that they really stay within the card panel, the card front, so that I don't have to worry about that. And then I felt like it needed a little more texture. So I am going to add some, it's like metallic, I guess it's thread, string. I don't even know what you call it. It's what you would put in a sewing machine. So you can correct me if I'm saying the wrong word, but I'm going to just wrap it around several times. And I just thought that was kind of a fun texture, kind of going around the bottom of those sprigs. It's holding them there, though it isn't. I mean, glue is holding them there, but it gives the illusion that they are being grounded by something. So here you can see I've put 3 pieces of double-sided tape in the back, And I'm just going to wrap this around several times because it is very, very fine. Like a lot of the elements in the front are very delicate. And I love the look. I thought it was really fun. So I think I went around this easily 10 times. And I just made sure that it was going into that double-sided tape around the back each time I went around the card front, just to make sure that it would stay there. I didn't have to be concerned about that. And I just put it in the 3 places, mostly because I wasn't sure where the end of my string was going to be. So that gave me 3 places to adhere the end of the string, no matter, where I kind of cut it. And it did end up at the center, so that worked out pretty well. So I just made sure everything was adhered at the back there. And then I'm going to kind of build my card. And I did do this for both card panels. I'm only going to show you this one, but it's the same on both of them. I just didn't figure you needed to watch me run string around 2 card fronts. And I did also put some glue on top of the area of the string, just because that gave me a little bit of wiggle room. Otherwise that would have grabbed instantly and I would not have been able to kind of make sure it was centered to where I wanted it to be. And I'm also going to adhere it down to the card base. And then I'm going to add just a touch of glue to the top of the sprigs as well, just so that they're not flopping around. Like right now, there's only a touch of glue holding them in the very bottom where the string is. So this just gave them just a touch more stability. I just added a little bit of glue, kind of where they meet the top of the card. And then that's really all they needed to kind of stay put. Just be careful setting them in an envelope because they could theoretically catch and then that glue might let go. But otherwise, I think that they did pretty well, and I love how they turned out. And of course, I was going to say and because, and of course I always need birthday cards and thank you cards, so that is generally the sentiment I grab the most. This is a happy birthday sentiment that actually comes in that same stamp set, the Floristry stamp set. So I thought it would be really pretty, and this is just a scrap of white cardstock I had from a different project, and I figured it would work really well to stamp out the sentiment. All I'm going to do is the happy birthday in white, on that white cardstock in black, because I do have that black soot and the black mat. So this just ties it all together a little bit. And I like to cut them down into labels. Sometimes I cut it really straight and it looks beautiful, and sometimes I don't cut it as straight as I'd hoped and it's got a little bit of a wonk to it. But honestly, these are handmade, and I've never had someone tell me that they didn't like my card if they received one. I mean, I'm hoping that if I sent a card to somebody, they wouldn't say something like that, but I've never had anybody be like, hey, this sentiment's a little bit wonky. I don't think people notice. I notice because I'm making it, but I don't think most people notice that kind of stuff. So not a big deal, but there are so many dyes and stuff on the market if you're concerned about cutting them straight like this. Simon Says Stamp has a beautiful label sentiment set that if you wanted to use that, you absolutely could. I actually own it. I have used it on other projects. So I do sometimes want my sentiments to be very straight. I wasn't really concerned with this card. I think that it turned out really cute, and I'm really happy with how they look. And of course, if you wanted this to be more little more masculine, maybe you don't add the flowers, maybe you don't add the pearls that I'm going to add, but I still think it reads a little bit masculine just with the color palette that I've chosen. So I don't know, depends on the gentleman you're giving it to, I suppose. And then here, I felt like the sentiment was just a little too much. So I'm going to cut them apart, and then that kind of lets me layer them up a little differently. And I'm going to tuck them into the florals as well. And you can see that I'm really struggling a little bit with the sentiment placement. I left this in for you guys just so you could see it. Like sometimes I change my mind, and a lot of the time I don't show that to you because it will be me like tapping my fingernails on the glass mat, trying to decide what I think looks best, and that would be kind of boring to watch. So, but sometimes I'm not sure what I want, so I have to move them around. I have to do a few things before I'm really happy with how they look. And I am actually going to go in as well and add just this little bit of a dash line with a really fine liner around the birthday sentiment, just because I think it gives it a little bit of a finished look. You'll see that here in a second when I kind of get through adhering the sentiments. And I did also adhere them flat, just because I thought that looked the best in this design. I want the colors on the background to kind of be your main focus, and then you kind of catch all the other details after you've noticed the colors. It's kind of what I was thinking. So that's why I aim for this kind of design with everything kind of flat, nothing really standing up too much. But I thought it turned out pretty cute, and I love this color palette. Like, it's such a fun, different palette that I've never used before, and Evergreen Bough is really growing on me as a color. It's one that I haven't used very often, but I'm kind of starting to dig it a lot. So you don't be surprised if you see it pop up in other makes, just because I am really enjoying it. That and Uncharted Mariner was another color that surprised me a little bit, because I tend towards, pinks and purples and teals. Those kind of be what I usually reach for, or the rainbow colors. But I've been having fun with these different shades. So I don't know, they may pop up here in a few different videos as we kind of move along. But I did have to add a couple of pearls around the sentiment, just because it's me and I love pearls. They just, I don't know, they finish a project for me, and I love that they kind of elevate it. They make it just a touch more elegant, and I love that look. So that is kind of what I went for. I'm pretty sure these are like a vintagey off-white color of pearl, and they're just so pretty. So I'm going to hold them up here so you guys can check them out in all of their glory. But I love how these came together with, for me, a very different color palette than I would usually reach for. But, all of the Oxide inks are just so fun, and they blend beautifully together that you almost can't go wrong with any color palette, really. So that is the card I had for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you'll leave me a like, leave me a comment, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday, with lives as the second Thursday. And as you guys know, this is the celebration month, so make sure you come back and check out the other videos that are going on. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.